not me. And howdy, everyone. Howdy, Lynn. Howdy, Dee. Howdy, Shawnette. And whoever else may be lurking. Today we are, welcome to the Word, number 214. There we go. We are continuing on in the book of Jasher. If you want to read it on your own, you can find it right there. We are going through chapters 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And today, if you are one of the people that's looking around saying, I don't know if we're in end times or not, I want you to think about what Yeshua said about the days of Noah and the days of Lot with what we're reading today. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and pray in. Father, thank you very much for bringing us together today for fellowship and edification in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah. We're very grateful that you've seen fit to bring us into your family again. And we would ask for your covering over people that are bound today to do emergency tasks. And also those who have been sick, we ask for your healing touch upon them. And not last, but we would ask that you pour out your spirit of knowledge and understanding on everybody here now and in the future in order that they get the message that you need them to receive from this study. Thank you, Father. We love you and bless you in Jesus, Yeshua's name. Amen. All righty. Jasher, chapter 16. At that time, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, sent to all the neighboring kings, to Nimrod, king of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal, king of Goyim, and to Arioch, king of Elasar, with whom he made a covenant, saying, Come up to me and assist me, that we may smite all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me these 13 years. And these 4 kings went up with all their camps, about 800,000 men. And they went as they were, and smote every man they found in their road. And the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, and Bela, king of Zoar, went out to meet them, and they all joined together in the valley of Siddim. And these 9 kings made war in the valley of Siddim, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were smitten before the kings of Elam. And the valley of Siddim was full of lime pits. And the kings of Elam pursued the kings of Sodom, and the kings of Sodom with their camps fled and fell into the lime pits. And all that remained went to the mountain for safety. And the 5 kings of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom, and they took all that there was in Sodom. And they plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And they also took Lot, Abram's brother, and his property, and they seized all the goods of the cities of Sodom, and they went away. And Eunuch, Abram's servant, who was in the battle, saw this and told Abram that all that the kings had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. And Abram heard this, and he rose up with about 318 men that were with him. And he that night pursued these kings and smote them, and they all fell before Abram and his men. And there was none remaining but the 4 kings who fled, and they went each his own road. And Abram recovered all the property of Sodom, and he also recovered Lot and his property, his wives and little ones, and all belonging to him, so that Lot lacked nothing. And when he returned from smiting these kings, he and his men passed the valley of Siddim, where the kings had made war together. And Bera, king of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him, went out from the lime pits into which they had fallen, to meet Abram and his men. And Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, the same was Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Malach. And Adonizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him a tenth from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies. And Adonizedek was a priest before God. And all the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there with their servants approached Abram and begged of him to return to them their servants whom he had made captive, and to take unto himself all the property. And Abram answered the kings of Sodom, saying, As the Lord liveth, who created heaven and earth, and who redeemed my soul from all affliction, and who delivered me this day from mine enemies, and gave them into my hand, I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that he saved. For the Lord God, in whom I trust, said unto me, Thou shalt lack nothing, for I will bless thee in all the works of thy hands. And now, therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you. Take it and go. As the Lord liveth, I will not take from you, from a living soul down to a shoe tie or thread, excepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle, as also the portions of the men who went with me, Anar, Askol, and Mamre, they and their men, as well as those also who had remained to watch the baggage, they shall take their portion of the spoil. And the kings of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take of whatever he chose, but he would not. And he sent away the kings of Sodom and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lot, and they went to their respective places. And Lot, his brother's son, he also sent away with his property, and he went with them. And Lot returned to his home, to Sodom, and Abram to his people returned to their home in the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. At that time, the Lord again appeared to Abram in Hebron, and he said to him, Do not fear, thy reward is very great before me. For I will not leave thee until I shall have multiplied thee and blessed thee and made thy seed like the stars in heaven, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And I will give unto thy seed all these lands that thou seest with thine eyes. To them will I give them for an inheritance forever. Only be strong and do not fear. Walk before me and be perfect. And in the 78th year of the life of Abram, in that year died Reu, the son of Peleg, and all the days of Reu were 239 years, and he died. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren in those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bare no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram, her husband, for a wife. For Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai as Sarai taught her. She was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. Then Sarai said to Abram, Behold, here is my handmaid Hagar. Go to her, that she may bring forth upon my knees, that I may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar unto him. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his wife Sarai. And he took his handmaid Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she rejoiced greatly. And her mistress was despised in her eyes, and she said within herself, This can only be that I am better before God than Sarai my mistress. For all the days that my mistress has been with my Lord, she did not conceive. But me the Lord has caused in so short a time to conceive by him. And when Sarai saw that Hagar had conceived by Abram, Sarai was jealous of her handmaid. And Sarai said within herself, This is surely nothing else, but that she must be better than I am. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee, for at the time when thou didst pray before the Lord for children, why didst thou not pray on my account, that the Lord should give me seed from thee? And when I speak to Hagar in thy presence, she despiseth my words, because she has conceived. and thou wilt say nothing to her. May the Lord judge between me and thee for what thou hast done to me. And Abram said to Sarai, Behold, thy handmaid is in thy hand. Do unto her as it may seem good in thy eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And an angel of the Lord found her in the place where she had fled by a well, and he said to her, Do not fear, for I will multiply thy seed, for thou shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael. Now, then, return to Sarai thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And Hagar called the place of that well Ber Lahai Roi. It is between Kadesh in the wilderness of Bered. And Hagar at that time returned to her master's house. And at the end of days, Hagar bare a son to Abram, and Abram called his name Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when he begat him.
Chapter 17. And in those days, in the 91st year of the life of Abram, the children of Chittim made war with the children of Tubal. For when the Lord had scattered the sons of men upon the face of the earth, the children of Chittim went and embodied themselves in the plain of Canopia, and they built themselves cities there and dwelt by the river Tibru. And the children of Tubal dwelt in Tuscana, and their boundaries reached the river Tibru. And the children of Tubal built a city in Tuscanan, and they called the name Sabina, after the name of Sabina, son of Tubal, their father. And they dwelt there unto this day. And it was at that time the children of Chittim made war with the children of Tubal, and the children of Tubal were smitten before the children of Chittim. And the children of Chittim caused 370 men to fall from the children of Tubal. And at that time the children of Tubal swore to the children of Chittim, saying, You shall not intermarry among us, and no man shall give his daughter to any of the sons of Chittim. For all the daughters of Tubal were in those days fair, for no woman were then found in the whole earth so fair as the daughters of Tubal. And all who delighted in the beauty of women went to the daughters of Tubal and took wives from them, and the sons of men, kings and princes, who greatly delighted in the beauty of women, took wives in those days from the daughters of Tubal. And in the end of 3 years after the children of Tubal were sworn to the children of Chittim not to give them their daughters for wives, about 20 men of the children of Chittim went to take some daughters of Tubal, but they found none. For the children of Tubal kept their oaths not to intermarry with them, and they would not break their oaths. And in the days of the harvest, the children of Tubal went into their fields to get in their harvest. When the young men of Chittim assembled and went to the city of Sebena, and each man took a young woman from the daughters of Tubal, and they came to their cities. And the children of Tubal heard of it, and they went to make war with them, and they could not prevail over them, for the mountain was exceedingly high for them. And when they saw they could not prevail over them, they returned to their land. And at the revolution of the year, the children of Tubal went and hired about 10,000 men from those cities that were near them, and they went to war with the children of Chittim. And the children of Tubal went to war with the children of Chittim to destroy their land and to distress them. And in this engagement, the children of Tubal prevailed over the children of Chittim. And the children of Chittim, seeing that they were greatly distressed, lifted up the children which they had had by the daughters of Tubal upon the wall which had been built, to be before the eyes of the children of Tubal. And the children of Chittim said to them, Have you come to make war with your own sons and daughters? And have we not considered your flesh and bones from that time till now? And when the children of Tubal heard this, they ceased to make war with the children of Chittim, and they went away. And they returned to their cities, and the children of Chittim at that time assembled and built 2 cities by the sea. And they called one Pertu and the other Eriza. And Adam the son of Terah was then 99 years old. And at that time, Abram the son of Terah was then 99 years old. And at that time the Lord appeared to him, and he said to him, I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will greatly multiply thy seed. And this is the covenant which I make between me and thee, that every male child be circumcised, thou and thy seed after thee. At 8 days old shall it be circumcised, and this covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And now therefore thy name shall be no more called Abram, but Abraham, and thy wife shall no more be called Sarai, but Sarah. And For I will bless you both, and I will multiply your seed, and after that you shall become a great nation, and kings shall come forth from you.
"18. And Abram rose and did all that Elohim had ordered him. And he took the men of his household and those bought with his money, and he circumcised them as Yahuwah has commanded him. And there was not one left who he did not circumcise. And Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised in the flesh of the foreskin. 13 years old was Ishmael when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And the third day, Abraham went out of his tent and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun during the pain of his flesh. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre and sent 3 of his ministering angels to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of his tent, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and lo, 3 men were coming from a distance. And he rose up and ran to meet them, and he bowed down to them and brought them into his house. And he said to them, If now I have found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a morsel of bread. And he pressured them, and they turned in, and he gave them water, and they washed their feet. And he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. And Abraham ran and took a calf, tender and good, and he hastened to kill it, and he gave it to his servant Eliezer to dress. And Abraham came to Sarah into the tent, and he said to her, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. And she did so. And Abraham hastened and brought before them butter and milk, beef and mutton, and gave it before them to eat before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done, and they did eat. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah your woman will have a son. And the men afterward departed and went their ways to the places to which they were sent. And in those days all the people of Sedom and Amorah and the whole 5 cities were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yahuwah, and they provoked Yahuwah with their abominations. And they strengthened in aging abominably and scornfully before Yahuwah. And their wickedness and crimes were in the days great before Yahuwah. And they had in their land a very extensive valley and about half a day's walk, and in it there were fountains of water and a great deal of herbage around the water. And all the people of Sedom and Amorah went there 4 times in the year with their women and children and all belonging to them, and they rejoiced there with timbrels and dances. And in the time of rejoicing, they would arise and lay hold of their neighbor's woman, and some the virgin daughters of their neighbors, and they enjoyed them. And each man saw his woman and daughter in the hands of his neighbors and did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night. That they afterward returned home, each man to his house, and each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times in the year. Also, when a stranger came into the cities and brought goods which he had purchased with the view to dispose of there, the people of these cities would assemble men, women, and children, young and old, and go to the man and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man until there was an end to all the goods of the owner which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarreled with him, saying, What is this work which you have done to me? Then they would approach to him one by one, and each would show him the little which he took and taunt him, saying, I only took the little which you did give me. And when he heard this from all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of soul. When they would all arise and go after him and drive him out of the city with great noise and tumult. And there was a man from the country of Elam, who was leisurely going on the road, seated upon his ass, which carried a fine mantle of diverse colors, and the mantle was bound with a cord upon the ass. And the man was on his journey passing through the street of Sedom when the sun set in the evening, and he remained there in order to abide during the night. But no one would let him into his house. And at that time there was in Sedom a wicked, mischievous man, one skillful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the street of the city, and he came to him and said, Whence come you, and whither do you go? And the man said to him, I am traveling from Chevron to Elam, where I belong, and as I passed the sun set, and no one would suffer me to enter his house, though I had bread and water and also straw and provender for my ass. and I am short of nothing. And Hadad answered and said to him, all that you shall want shall be supplied by me, but in the street you shall not abide all night. And Hadad brought him to his house, and he took off the mantle from the ass with the cord and brought them to his house. And he gave the ass straw and provender when the traveler ate and drank in Hadad's house, and he abode there that night. And in the morning the traveler rose up early to continue his journey, when Hadad said to him, wait, comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And the man did so, and he remained with him. And they both ate and drank together during the day, and when the man rose up to go. And Hadad said to him, behold, now the day is declining. You had better remain all night, that your heart may be comforted. And he pressed him so that he tarried there all night. And on the second day he rose up early to go away, when Hadad pressed him, saying, comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And he remained and ate with him also the second day. And the man rose up to continue his journey. And Hadad said to him, behold, now the day is declining. Remain with me to comfort your heart, and in the morning rise up early and go your way. And the man would not return, but rose and saddled his ass. And while he was saddling his ass, the woman of Hadad said to her man, behold, this man has remained up with us for 2 days, eating and drinking, and he has given us nothing. And now shall he go away from us without giving us anything? And Hadad said to her, be quiet. And the man saddled his ass to go, and he asked Hadad to give him the cord and mantle to tie it upon the ass. And Hadad said to him, what say you? And he said to them, that you, my Adoni, shall give me the cord and the mantle made with diverse colors, which you did conceal within your house, and take care of it. And Hadad answered the man, saying, this is the interpretation of your dream. The cord which you see means that your life will be lengthened out like a cord. And having seen the mantle colored with all sorts of colors means you shall have a vineyard in which you shall plant trees of all fruits. And the traveler answered, saying, not so, my Adoni, for I was awake when I gave you the cord, and also a mantle woven with different colors, which you did take off the ass to put them by for me. And Hadad answered and said, surely I have told you the interpretation of your dream, and it is a good dream, and this is the interpretation thereof. Now the sons of men gave me 4 pieces of silver, which is my charge for interpreting dreams, and of you only I require 3 pieces of silver. And the man was provoked at the words of Hadad, and he cried bitterly, and brought Hadad to Sirach, judge of Sedom. And the man laid his cause before Sirach the judge, when Hadad replied, saying, is it not so? But thus the matter stands. And the judge says to the traveler, this man Hadad tells you the truth, for he is famed in the cities for accurate interpretation of dreams. And the man cried at the words of the judge and said, not so, my Adoni, for it was in the day that I gave him the cord and the mantle which was upon the ass, in order to put them by his house. And they both disputed before the judge, the one saying thus the matter was, and the other declaring otherwise. And Hadad said to the man, give me 4 pieces of silver that I charge for my interpretation of dreams. I will not make any allowance, and give me the expenses of the 4 meals that you ate at my house. And the man said to Hadad, truly I will pay you for what I ate at your house. Only give me the cord and mantle which you did conceal in your house. And Hadad replied before the judge and said to the man, did I not tell you the interpretation of your dream? The cord means that your days shall be prolonged like a cord, and the mantle that you will have a vineyard in which you will plant all kinds of fruit trees. This is the proper interpretation of your dream. Now give me the 4 pieces of silver that I require as for compensation, for I will make you no allowance. And the man cried at the words of Hadad, and they both quarreled before the judge. And the judge gave orders to his servants, who drove them rashly from his house. And then went away quarreling from the judge when the people of Sedom heard them. And they gathered about them, and they exclaimed against the stranger, and they drove him rashly from the city. And the man continued his journey upon his ass with bitterness of soul, lamenting and weeping. And when he was going along, he wept at what had happened to him in the corrupt city of Sedom.
Jasher 19. And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges to 4 cities, and these were their names: Sirach in the city of Sodom, Sharkad in Gomorrah, Zabnak in Admah, and Menon in Zeboim. And Eleazar, Abraham's servant, applied to them different names, and he converted Serach to Shakra, Sharkad to Shakrura, Zebnak to Kezobim, and Menon to Matzlodin. And by desire of their 4 judges, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. And as he lay down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet, and measure him by the length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end, and when he cried out to them, they would not answer him. And if he was longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end until the man had reached the gates of death. And if he continued to cry out to them, they would answer him, saying, "Thus shall it be done to a man that cometh into our land." And when men heard all these things that the people of the cities of Sodom did, they refrained from coming there. And when a poor man came to their land, they would give him silver and gold, and cause a proclamation in the whole city not to give him a morsel of bread to eat. And if the stranger should remain there some days and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a morsel of bread, then at his death all the people of the city would come and take their silver and gold which they had given to him. And those that could recognize the silver or gold which they had given him took it back. And at his death they also stripped him of his garments, and they would fight about them. And he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. They would after that carry him and bury him under some shrubs in the desert. So they did all the days to anyone that came to them and died in their land. And in the course of time, Sarah sent Eleazar to Sodom to see Lot and inquire after his welfare. And Eleazar went to Sodom, and he met a man of Sodom fighting with a stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And this poor man cried to Eleazar and supplicated his favor on account of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, "Why dost thou act thus to the poor man who came to thy land?" And the man of Sodom answered Eleazar, saying, "Is this man thy brother, or have the people of Sodom made thee a judge this day that thou speakest about this man?" And Eleazar strove with the man of Sodom on account of the poor man. And when Eleazar approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hastened and with a stone smote Eleazar in the forehead. And the blood flowed copiously from Eleazar's forehead. When the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Eleazar, saying, "Give me my hire for having rid thee of this bad blood that was in thy forehead. For such is the custom and law in our land." And Eleazar said to him, "Thou hast wounded me and requirest me to pay thee thy hire." And Eleazar would not hearken to the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Eleazar and brought him to Shakra, the judge of Sodom, for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, "I beseech thee, my lord, thus has this man done, for I smote him with a stone that the blood flowed from his forehead, and he is unwilling to give me my hire." And the judge said to Eleazar, "This man speaketh truth to thee. Give him his hire, for this is the custom of our land." And Eleazar heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and smote the judge, and the stone struck the judge on his forehead, and the blood flowed copiously from the forehead of the judge. And Eleazar said, "If this then is the custom in your land, give thou unto this man what I should have given him, for this has been thy decision, thou didst decree it." And Eleazar left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. And when the kings of Elam had made war with the kings of Sodom, the kings of Elam captured all the property of Sodom, and they took Lot captive with his property. And when it was told to Abraham, he went and made war with the kings of Elam, and he recovered from their hands all the property of Lot, as well as the property of Sodom. At that time, the wife of Lot bare him a daughter, and he called her name Peltith, saying, "Because God has delivered him and his whole household from the kings of Elam, Peltith, daughter of Lot, grew up. And one of the men of Sodom took her for a wife. And a poor man came into the city to seek a maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead upon the earth, and they did so. And Pelteth, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the streets, starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive, and he was just upon the point of death. And her soul was filled with pity on account of the man, and she fed him secretly with bread for many days, and the soul of this man was revived. For she went forth to fetch water, when she went forth to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher, and when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat. She did many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, "This can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days, or live as this man has, without even his countenance changing." And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was stationed, to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Pelteth, daughter of Lot, went forth that day to fetch water. And she put bread in her pitcher of water. And she went to draw water by the poor man's place. And she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the 3 men saw what Pelteth did to the poor man. And they said to her, "It is thou then who hast supported him, and therefore has he not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed, and they seized Pelteth and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Pelteth and brought her before the judges. And they said to them, Thus did she do, and it was she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore did he not die all this time? Now therefore declare to us the punishment due this woman for having transgressed our law. And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city, and they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. And in the city of Admah there was a woman to whom they did the like. For a traveler came into the city of Admah to abide there all night, with the intention of going home in the morning. And he sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father to remain there, as the sun had set, when he had reached that place. And the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house. And he asked her for a drink of water. And she said to him, "Who art thou?" And he said to her, "I was this day going on the road, and reached here when the sun set. So I will abide here all night, and in the morning I will arise early and continue my journey." And the young woman went into the house and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this affair became known to the people of Admah. And they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, that they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, "The judgment of death must pass upon this woman, because she transgressed our law. And this is therefore the decision concerning her." And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to foot, as the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees, which were then in their hives. And the bees flew upon her and stung her, that her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries ascended to heaven. And the Lord was provoked at this, and at all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had an abundance of food, and had tranquility amongst them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before the Lord. And the Lord sent for two of the angels that had come to Abram's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the angels rose up from the door of Abraham's tent, and after they had eaten and drunk, and they reached Sodom in the evening. And Lot was then sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when he saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. And he pressed them greatly and brought them into his house. And he gave them victuals, which they ate. And they abode all night at his house. And the angels said to Lot, "Arise, go forth from this place, thou and all belonging to thee, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of this city, for the Lord will destroy this place." And the angels laid hold upon the hand of Lot and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hands of his children, and all belonging to him, and they brought him forth and set him without the cities. And they said to Lot, Escape for thy life. And he fled into all belonging to him. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah and upon all these cities brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. And Ado, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place unto this day. And the oxen which stood in that place daily licked up the salt to the extremities of their feet, and in the morning it would spring forth afresh, and they again licked it up unto this day. And Lot and 2 of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abram rose up early in the morning to see what had been done to the cities of Sodom. And he looked and beheld the smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of a furnace. And Lot and his 2 daughters remained in the cave. And they made their father drink wine, and they lay with him. For they said there was no man upon the earth that could raise up seed from them, for they thought that the whole earth was destroyed. And they both lay with their father, and they conceived and bare sons. The firstborn called the name of her son Moab, saying, From my father did I conceive him. He is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger also called her son Ben-Ami. He is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. And after this, Lot and his 2 daughters went away from there, and he dwelt on the other side of Jordan with his 2 daughters and their sons, and the sons of Lot grew up. And they went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan, and they begat children, and they were fruitful, and they multiplied. All righty. Someone didn't switch that. Oh, never mind. Here we go. Go ahead.
Okay, chapter 20. And at that time, Abraham journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistines, and he dwelt in Gerar. It was in the 25th year of Abraham's being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year of the life of Abraham, that he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah his wife, Say thou art my sister to anyone that shall ask thee, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful. And they asked Abraham concerning her. And he said, She is my sister. And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, A man from the land of Canaan came to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that is exceedingly fair. And Abimelech heard the words of his servant, who praised Sarah to him. And Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Abimelech, and the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, What is that man to thee with whom thou didst come to our land? And Sarah answered and said, He is my brother, and we came from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place. And Abimelech said to Sarah, Behold, my land is before thee. Place thy brother in any part of this land that pleases thee, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is thy brother. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, I have given orders that thou shalt be honored as thou desirest on account of thy sister Sarah. And Abraham went forth from the king, and the king's presence followed him. At that time, as at evening time, before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him, and he lay upon the throne and slept till morning. And he dreamed that an angel of the Lord came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. And the angel stood over Abimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified of his dream and said to the angel, In what have I sinned against thee, that thou comest to slay me with thy sword? And the angel answered and said to Abimelech, Behold, thou diest on account of the woman which thou didst yesternight bring to thy house. For she is a married woman, the wife of Abraham, who came to thy house. Now therefore return that man his wife, for she is his wife. And shouldest thou not return to her, know that thou wilt surely die, thou and all belonging to thee. And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines, and the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand. And he smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword, yea, he continued to smite them. And the angel of the Lord smote the whole land of the Philistines on that night. And there was a great confusion on that night on the following morning. And every womb was closed and all their issues, and the hand of the Lord was upon them on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with terror and confusion and with a great dread, and he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing amongst the servants of the king answered the king, saying, O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband. For the like happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt. And he said concerning his wife, She is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he cometh to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger. And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a wife, and the Lord brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her husband. Now therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened yesternight to the whole land, for there is a very great consternation and great pain and lamentation, and we know that was on account of the woman which thou didst take. Now therefore, restore this woman to her husband, lest it befall us as it did to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called and had Sarah called for, and she came before him, and he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to them, What is this work you have been doing in saying you are brother and sister? And I took this woman for a wife? And Abraham said, Because I thought I should suffer death on account of my wife. And Abimelech took flocks and herds, and men servants and maid servants, and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, the whole land is before thee. Dwell in it wherever thou shalt choose. And Abraham and Sarah his wife went forth from the king's presence with honor and respect, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain, through the plague which the angel had inflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarah. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, Pray now for thy servants to the Lord thy God, that he may put away this mortality from amongst us. And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech and his subjects, and the Lord heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and all his subjects.
Okay, this time for real. All righty. So let's go back to 16. Who took notes?
Genesis 14.
All the way down at 14?
Well, it's Genesis 14 kind of matches up with this first part of
Genesis 14. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So this is when Abraham goes and fights against the kings and recovers his nephew, his brother's son. And we also have here, note that people try to say that Abraham tithed of everything that was his, but it doesn't say that here, nor in Scripture, nor in Genesis, that it says he gave a 10th part of all his war booty, of everything he captured.
What was above and beyond extra?
Yep.
Yeah.
His isn't it abundance? Isn't that in
Increase.
scripture also, that your tithe is on the abundance?
Yeah, on
Or
the
tithe.
abundance, the increase.
The
Well, you
increase?
give your first fruits,
Mhm.
and then you tithe of your increase, which is exponential, actually.
Could be.
Well, as long as there's no droughts and famine. We- but yeah, it's pretty amazing. Okay.
And I'm trying to find it. It says Shem.
Yes. I think that was,
What verse is that?
11.
11, thank you.
yep.
So Shem This is where people get Shem as Melchizedek.
Okay.
I think.
Could be. And it's interesting here. It's Adonai-Zedek. And not Melchizedek.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a Zedek at the
Mhm.
end.
Well, Adonai is also another word for Lord or God.
Mm-hmm.
So this, okay, what else jumped out at us in this? I love in 15,
Mhm.
it says, I trust God. He's saying, I trust God in whom I trust said unto me, thou shalt lack nothing, for I will bless thee in all the works of thy hands. So he's like, I don't need whatever it is you're offering me.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep it.
Well, he also tells us that.
Mhm.
Like, if you will follow my instructions, you will do what I tell you to do, you have my protection. You're blessed. There's it's a if-then statement.
Right. Yes, there
Right.
is.
And see how they really pressed on him too. To, let us give you stuff, and he's like, no, no, no. You know, okay, just what my people need to eat. You know, the men that helped out. So
Yeah, I don't want anything you have to offer.
I don't want any of your stuff.
I don't want your stuff.
And then notice too, there's a lot of jumping back and forth
Mm-hmm.
time-wise, because we go from what was it, the 73rd year of Abram to then the 85th year of Abram, and then we drop back down to the battle later in the chapters, and then all of a sudden he's 99. So it's a lot of hopping around. You really should take notes if you're going to keep track of it, for if you're going to set up some sort of chronological
Well,
time when this all goes down.
all really good. There are some really good stories that do that, and if you can figure it out, sometimes you got to read it a couple times when it jumps around like that, so then you can just kind of get the whole thing. And I like it because it's like, oh, so then they jump to something that's happening at the same time over here, you know. And sometimes it's confusing. But it's so fun.
That's why taking notes is so helpful.
It is
Like a epic movie that's got these flashbacks.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Now, notice as soon as Hagar conceives, okay,
Well, there's pride, and then there's jealousy, and then there's blame, and
well, the thing is too, it was Sarai's suggestion.
Yeah, see, she's trying to blame. That's where the blame comes in.
Yeah.
Blaming.
My note is, and every time I read that statement, is like the Father tells us, or he puts it on our heart that he's going to do something, and it doesn't happen as fast as we think it should happen. And we start trying to help. And we make a big old huge mess of it.
Not easy bake oven. I'm helping.
We're stuck with that mess. You know, I mean, we're stuck with the consequences of that mess we made. Sometimes he fixes it, sometimes he doesn't. But
it's so hard not to do anything at times.
But at the same time, look at what Yah did with this. This rashness. He blessed Ishmael, and eventually, as we will read yet again, turn him into a multitude of nations.
Well, it's interesting. He got the same blessing. He was 12 princes. He got the same blessing that was supposed to go to, that was given as a promise of the son of Abraham.
Yep.
But not under, it didn't, that he was not going to get to the full blessing as, and the Father always chooses the second over the first. But still, he got the same blessing, 12 princes.
Yeah. So that, and then I find it interesting because Abba comes to Hagar when she runs out and gets some alone time in the wilderness. And Yah basically tells her, hey, don't worry about it. Okay, I got it covered. Now go back and just submit yourself to Sarai. Put up with it. Deal with it.
Well, she sort of kind of created part of her own problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
this is something that I've done is pride and arrogance. You'll create a problem that probably didn't exist to start with.
Well, it's also, too, maybe she felt it wasn't her place, but couldn't she have also said, Nay, Lord Abram, it is by Sarah that your seed will come.
Well,
So
maybe, but in that time, we even got it in this time. You submit to that man of that household. And she might not have had a choice. She was a handmaid.
Yep. That's true. Okay, let's go to 17.
But the father could have not produced and let the heir be produced too. So he had a plan and purpose in that.
Yes, he did.
And then another question is, why did not Hagar hand that child over to Sarah and put it on her knee?
right, like she
Sounded like she coveted the child because it wasn't really hers. It was Hagar. It was Sarah's child.
yeah,
Was
there's a
supposed
lot of problems.
And I thought about that. I think I've got a note there, and maybe in something later, thinking about Naomi with Ruth and Boaz. That child was put on Naomi's knee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, chapter 17.
I'm sorry.
All right. So,
Casey.
what do you have?
Mine's in 6.
Oh,
In
mine's
6?
not even till way late. So
Okay, what do you have in 6?
Just the notice, and this goes in multiple places in Scripture, in canonized in this, a woman's beauty is of value. A lot of times women are sort of kind of told to hide or tone down their beauty. You need to be plain and ordinary, and it is considered valuable. So anyway, let your beauty shine through.
So, in this, I find it interesting that they made this a vow to not give their daughters to the children of Tubal, right? Or the children of Chittim. And after they kidnap a bunch or take a bunch and they go to war the second time after they hire a bunch of mercenaries, the people of Chittim basically say, they lift up their children, right? And say, hey, these are your children. These are your grandsons and granddaughters, and you're going to kill us all? I just found that kind of interesting. It's like, So, I don't know. There's something to it. I can't quite put my finger on about going to war at any time against any people.
I had a thought on that because that's in chapter 12 or verse 12.
Uh-huh.
It said, lifted up the children upon the wall.
Right.
What does that exactly mean? Were they holding them up, or did they kill them and hang them up?
No, I think they lifted them up.
like shields.
Well,
Use them for a shield, basically, is what they did. But that's why they didn't want to intermarry with them, because that was a common thing. You couldn't go to war with your family. That's how it's, interesting. Who knows?
I think it's basically they were able to say, look, we're related here. You're seeing a lot of that now. A lot of criticism, say, over the war in Eastern Europe, saying once again, the elites or the higher ups are getting brother to fight against brother for their pleasure, for their corruption, for their multitude of things.
Well, and if you really get to looking at, what Yahuwah did with the 10 tribes of Israel, he scattered them out throughout the entire world. They intermarried. Then we are related. I mean, that's our brother anyway.
Yep. Well, a lot of people are familiar with the story of the fighting in World War I that stopped on Christmas. And there's reputed to be someone who stood up on the German side and said, "We are Saxon and you are Anglo-Saxon. We are brothers. Why are we doing this?" And it was actually a big problem that the generals having to get them to fight again after that. But what's not commonly reported,
Sorry. Yeah.
what's not commonly reported is that happened every year. They had a
Wow.
problem with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, and stuff's going on nowadays. People are just like, we're not buying into this agenda anymore.
Yeah.
You can't force people to fight when they finally just go, we've had enough of
Right.
junk. I'm not going to fight that person. I may not like them. I may not disagree. I may not agree with them, but I'm done with your stuff.
Okay. So then at the end of this chapter, Abram becomes Abraham and Sarai becomes Sarah.
With the covenant of circumcision.
Yep. They get the mark.
Ow. So I guess not a whole lot got done around their house after that for a little while. All the ladies had to do all the work. The ladies are doing
3
double
days.
time.
Right?
Well, they got the
Is the heat of the burn, the heat of the pain, 3 days, which is how they revenged Dinah.
Yep.
Who were the perpetrators? Simeon and
Levy.
was it Levi?
Yeah, Levite. Levite. Well, so the men got a small taste of childbirth.
Doesn't say that now, does it? Which is worse, getting kicked in the nads or giving birth to a child?
I've had.
We can't answer.
Well, first, I can't answer because I don't know, but I will say that I've had kidney stones, and the nurse that wheeled me back and forth between the X-ray room, she said I've had both, and I'll take childbirth any day.
Well, let me ask you this:
I don't know.
how many men have you heard after a year or two say, "You know what? I think I'd like to get kicked in the nads again"?
And a woman's going, I'd like to have another baby.
I think it's time to have another baby.
Right.
Okay, so anyways.
Father just miraculously removes that remembrance of pain from her brain.
So here is where we get into the other stuff that was happening in Sodom and Gomorrah, which this is to me, the stuff we were reading about the laws they make are all to their advantage, to take advantage of other people. The courts they have, the judges that they have are all biased. They're not partial. They all rule in favor of the inhabitants using these perverse laws. They just make up laws on the spur of the moment. And to me, that is like, it's like today, right? I mean, the stuff they're getting away with is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know,
most cases.
yeah, while we were reading these, I was reminded of there's a modern proverb that says, "Don't pee on my back and tell me it's raining."
Yes.
That's what they're doing here, right? Split open Abimelech's forehead. Says, "I was letting, you owe me money now because I was letting bad blood out of you."
Yeah. Calling good evil and evil good.
Yep.
I love how Zechariah just turns it around. I mean,
Well, but in the people that this is happening to, you stand there just stunned. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain can't even process it. It's just so ridiculous.
Look at how many municipalities, big cities, have passed laws making it illegal to feed the homeless.
That's my notes.
oh yeah.
Right? And they'll arrest people for it. And what happens? I mean, they don't change the law back. And you see, an article here and there about the outrage. Oh, this, old widow was arrested for feeding the homeless, or a pastor, or whomever else.
Or, well, you've also got these modern day lawsuits that not necessarily frivolous. It's just like the person that actually was wronged is the one that ends up getting sued.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those right now.
And you sit there and stunned, blinking your eyes, like, what in the world?
Yeah, and then it'll be coming to this side of the ocean. But look at the people now getting arrested because they said something that was offensive, or that might offend somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Or defending yourself when somebody breaks into your house, do bad things.
yep. And that's been happening here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. Okay. So anything else jumping out at you in this?
The little diverse colors in the mantle, that kind of little foreshadowing of a coat of many colors. How it was stripped off of him and taken away, and that kind of little foreshadowing to me.
Are we blending like verse or chapter 18, 19 sort of kind of together?
A bit.
Are we still okay? So it's 18:18. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure that these should be separated, but I'm glad they did, because they're long.
Mine's in 19.
Okay.
And that, what do you have there?
On 23, where they took Lot. He had an opportunity to leave, and he didn't. He went back.
I was thinking about that as well, because it says all the men of the city would partake in this. But then again, in Genesis, we're told that when Abraham is talking to the angels and haggling with the Lord. Well, what if there's 50 righteous? What if there's 30, 40, 30, 20, 10? Well, what if there's 5? But Lot's the only person that comes out, him and his household.
Well, and not all of his household.
Not all of his household.
I had mentioned that before reading Jasher, back when we were reading the canonized script, that 2 of his daughters came out, but he had more daughters. And Jasher confirms that information.
That's why his wife looked back, because her daughter, my children. So.
And that was 4 people. What did Abraham haggle the angel down to? 5? Well, actually, it wasn't. It was.
I think it was 10.
It was Yahusha that he was talking to. He haggled him down to what, 10 or 5?
I think 10 was the last number.
Yeah. So what came out was 4 people.
Genesis 18:28.
So that, you want to read that, Lynn?
It's Genesis 18:28. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Will that destroy all the city for 5? And he said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not. And so he just goes. So that's where their conversation is. Starts about 22. 18:22.
That's now. What was the population? How many people were there?
Well, it couldn't have been just huge mongus for the kings to carry off all the men. But it was, I'm sure it was still a sizable city.
Right.
The other thing that caught my attention, was it in that one? Or was it in another one?
Talking about
Lot is actually sitting at the gate.
Mhm.
So it's not that he was just living there.
right.
It's making
He
money.
was actually he was actually part of the elders, part of the leadership of the town, of the city.
But notice when they had one of their cases, they didn't go to the city gate. They took the people to the judge's house.
Right. True.
So their whole system was perverse.
Right.
Everything about it.
Because isn't in that time frame where the elders sat? Was at the city gates?
Yes. Yep. In that. Now it's also interesting too, because I don't remember if it was in 18 or 19, talking about out of the city was the water surrounded with the herbs, with the green herbs. And that also
35.
adds to what Yeshua said. He said in those times they builded, they planted, right? They gave and took in marriage, but they builded and planted until the day that Lot went out from the city.
Mhm.
So what were they planting? It just makes me wonder.
They were probably planting things that hallucinogens and stuff like that.
I don't know. I mean, it could be, what if they had genetically modified stuff?
Oh, could be.
I mean, what if they were planting, look, our stuff we'll plant it by the water because our wheat has fish genes in it, or
Something like that. Yeah, right.
yeah, I mean, because that they've done that with the modified
Salmon.
wheat they have now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff they've done that with.
Well, and you've
Even
got
living creatures.
where they'll crossbreed certain varieties of things, like to get a waterless, seedless watermelon. Well, that
Well,
seedless
salmon-
watermelon does not have life. It's
Salmon and eels.
Gross.
Yeah, so you got to be careful. Hybridizing is one thing, but genetically modifying is a completely other thing.
Well, I go out of my way now to get stuff with seeds in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting
No,
because
even those seedless watermelons have seeds.
the government recognizes organic seedless, though.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an oxymoron.
But they still kind of have seeds in there, and some of them are mature seeds that you can grow a new plant with. Because the plant wants to produce. It wants to do what God wants it to do. So it'll find a way around that kind of thing.
Yeah, everything is supposed to procreate.
Mm-hmm.
Or at
Plants
least
and animals, they
have
seem
the
to kind of
seed.
find a way around.
But even if they do manage to grow,
Will it be?
They just keep going back to their original.
will it be what it's supposed to be? I mean, like Jonathan, I think you sent me a video about avocado trees.
Right.
You can grow an avocado seed or an avocado tree from an avocado plant, but you will not get the variety that you purchased, like Haas.
Right.
If
And
you
it's the same way
grow
with
that
apples.
seed, it won't produce a Haas.
Right. It's the same way with apples.
Yeah, if you don't buy a hot seed.
No, it won't
No.
produce a Haas.
Nope. Doesn't matter, Lynn. It has to be avocado trees and apple trees have to be cloned if you want that same type of fruit.
Oh yeah, okay. Yep.
And that, but I don't know. Supposedly originally, what we call a watermelon started out as something like the size of a small ball.
Maybe a cantaloupe size.
Look up mouse melon.
Smaller even than that.
Well,
Look
wow.
up mouse melons.
And they were
Mouse
bitter.
melons. Yeah, look up
Bitter?
mouse melon.
What melon?
Mouse melon.
Mouse melons?
Yeah.
And actually, bitters are more healthy. Your body needs bitters.
You need everything bitter, salty, sweet, and whatever every day. I'll
Yeah,
take
we
my
need
bitters
variety.
with coffee. Thank you.
Okay, so this, let's see here. How far are we in our society, do you think, of people being put to death for helping other people?
Not far. If you can be put in jail for feeding the homeless, we're not that far off. But this was Lot's daughter. Why didn't he pack up and get the heck out of Dodge? He had the means to do that. And I can see sometimes some people are stuck. You don't have an option.
I don't know. Let's go to 20. That.
Well, what's your thought? You asked my question. You asked me ask us that question. What's your thought?
I don't know. I think maybe it's already happening. Right? I mean, we have a state that just passed laws to let out everybody out of jail pending trial except for murder. So that's further down the path, the primrose path, that, that includes arson, rape, assault with a deadly weapon, armed robbery.
Murder.
Well, you know what? They're just misunderstood. Well, we're going to let them out on the street until they come to court.
And are you going to be able to pick them back up?
That'll give them time to be understood.
I don't know, man. If they're letting them out for that, why wouldn't you go to court?
Why would you bother? Yeah.
Why would you bother going and getting them?
Right.
Why would that bother person? Is that person going to be honorable in return for their court date?
Why wouldn't they?
They're so honorable to begin with.
Yep. That is truth right there. And I think Landon's still on watermelons. Let's see.
We'll have to send him some of the big, gigantic watermelon seeds.
Getting lost in the controls. Okay, here we go.
75 pounds of watermelon.
Okay, so now Abram goes to the land of the Philistines. And
Now, when is this? Is this in this continuation or is this a flashback?
well, in verse 1, it says it's the 100th year of the life of Abram.
Okay.
So we jumped ahead.
So I think now we're, 'cause the last report we had before this, he was 99 when they all got circumcised, and then it went back in time to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and then now we're jumping ahead again to he's hanging out with he's living in the land of the Philistines, but Sarah's his sister again.
He's 90 years old and still considered beautiful. I think that's amazing. I mean, granted, I think it says she lives till she's like 127 or something like that. So this would put her in our modern day like 70 years old. But still, to have that much, 70 years old and still be considered beautiful enough that you're concerned.
Right. Yep. And that, but at the same time too, she hasn't had children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things from that Enoch talks about is they actually gave themselves what we would call an abortion, gave themselves abortions and
Jasher 3.
some type of concoction to prevent them from getting pregnant, so that
Sterilize them.
their figures didn't change, right?
Yeah.
Or so that their, what do they call it? Their countenance. They kept their countenance through their age, but they didn't have children. And that's what's being glorified now too. So we got the days of Noah and the days of Lot now.
Well, but I think about that. That was in Jasher 3 also. It was Zillah, Tubal-Cain's mother, where it was talking about she partook of that, doing that. But I think about that now, modern day birth control. I've got my career. I got to do this. I got to do that.
I knew a woman that wouldn't have a child because she didn't want to lose her figure, and her husband didn't want to. And this was the 80s. So they adopted a child. And that was her reason for not having her own baby. Couldn't believe it. I was like, okay.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, I can.
I will say.
I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I have that mind.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah. I get it too. I mean,
I can't point a finger down. Can't point a finger at her because I did it too.
Your hips do get wider.
I do find it interesting though, and I guess maybe he changed his mind, but at least Abraham didn't make her hide in a trunk this time.
That's what I was thinking when I was reading it. Oh no trunk this time.
That
I'd been like, okay, dude, you've got some serious problems. I'm not hiding in a trunk.
You got in the trunk.
I'd be like, no.
So what didn't the Philistines get it a little bit worse than Pharaoh did?
Yeah, people were dropping dead, and
because people got sick in Egypt, but here people were being slain, it looks like.
And it also says they shut up. What does it say? Like they couldn't have babies or something?
Yeah. Well, he did that both times.
Have their issuance.
Yeah. The father did that both times. He shut up wombs.
Yep. So basically he gets told on. Now what is this? It's like here again, Abimelech right, gives him flocks and herds, men servants, maid servants, thousands of pieces of silver, and says, "Go somewhere else, away from me." So this is when they go to the land of Gerar. Gerar.
So
Why-
it paid all that payment's like an apology payment, maybe.
Okay.
I
don't
messed
know.
up. Let me make it up to you. Or I don't know. Maybe Abba must have put that on him to do it. I mean,
Well, I think of that in sort of kind of I agree with you, Lynn. The father, said, "No, you're going to bless them," but it's just like, "Here, take everything I got. Get out of here. Go away. I'll give you.
we're leaving Egypt again. Yeah.
Here, take this. Leave."
Yep. That's
Yeah,
how.
because
And is that not what they did with when the Israel came out of Egypt? Here, take this.
Exactly.
Get out of
so
here.
here's a foreshadowing of that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you're killing us here.
Our possessions are not even worth anything with you around. Just take everything.
Right?
Hmm.
Please go now. Please go now.
It's interesting how Father will use that.
To bless his people.
But he's even if people that are not his people get it.
Yep. They got stuff in water. They got stuff in our food.
The soil.
They're a
Cosmetics.
little bit better off in Europe, but not much.
You've got cosmetics, you've got cleaning products, got your detergent that you wash clothes with, all that, pre-treaters, and it's in everything.
And if
That's
it's on you, it's in you.
Talking about letting people out of jail, letting out the dangerous ones to make room for all the rest.
Let's see how long it lasts.
And until someone throws a rock at the forehead of the judge.
And actually, I see that's
Well,
not much farther.
basically, it's going to have to be something similar, like in a simile sort of way. Not a physical rock on somebody's head, but
Right.
basically giving them back what they're giving.
Well, rocks have made of mineral compounds like copper and lead. Anyways,
Lead's soft.
okay. So I think that's about it. Anything else? No? Okay. Everybody, thanks for joining us today. Joining us again. We're going to be doing 21 through 21. Yeah, 21 through 25. Next.
20.
You just read 20. And that if you want to read with us, let us know. If you got a different schedule than what the shows appear, let us know. Maybe you can record with us. But thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Dee. Mucho apreciado.
Welcome.
Gratitudo.
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, everybody, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. That we will talk to you later. Love you all.